Let me get my coffee. I apologize, as always, for the background noise, street noise. Hi, welcome to what I don't think is a vlog. I think it's just a chat video. I wanted to talk about the book that I just finished, mostly because, I have thoughts and I wanted to share them, and I think that I'll lose my thoughts before like a wrap up at the end of the month. And I'm starting to work on a new vlog with Ohad, my partner, so you can keep your eyes out for that. So, more of a chat video. How are you all doing? I've got to head to work soon. I have some performances tonight. First, I wanted to share this book that I got the other day, which is Wine Simple. One of my goals this year was to learn more about wine. Ohad and I really love drinking wine. I love going to wine bars. My parents are wine people. They live in Italy also, in wine country. And I feel like I know sort of what I like, and I do have some base knowledge, but I wanted just to learn more about wine. Both Ohad and I wanted to learn more about wine. So I saw this book in the local bookstore by Aldo Sohm, A Totally Approachable Guide from a World-Class Sommelier. I think Aldo Sohm is a sommelier in a 3 Michelin-starred restaurant called Le Bernardin. I think is in Manhattan. They have a wine list of like 300 wines or something crazy. Last night we had a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough in New Zealand. So it was fun to kind of have a lesson, like to have our own lesson about the wine that we were drinking, or about the kind of wine. Oh my god. Broken up in a really digestible and fun and funny also way. So we kind of read about Sauvignon Blanc, the kind of key flavors. I mean, we're kind of familiar with them. Learn about the countries and places where this varietal is grown and is most popular in, and specifically reading about the area in which the vineyards are and how the earth in those areas affects the taste, the exotic fruits, things like that. So I just wanted to share with you that that's something that was really fun, and I think we're gonna keep doing that, like with whatever bottle of wine we're drinking. We'll open this up and just learn more about what we're drinking, and be able to better understand and form stronger opinions about what we drink and what we like. I love that the pages are also the color of red wine, so it's just really cute. Let's talk about the book that I just finished, which was Cold Enough for Snow by Jessica Au. I'm like all kinds of disorganized today. Okay, I have my notes and everything. So I got this as an ARC on NetGalley from Fitzarraldo. Fitzarraldo is a publisher out of the UK. They publish really, really, really interesting books, nonfiction and fiction, more of which I would really love to read. I should just make an order on Fitzarraldo sometime. You've probably seen their kind of very pleasing blue and white covers with very simple typeface. Jessica Au is a writer based in Melbourne in Australia, and this book won the inaugural novel prize. It's run by Giramondo, which is out of Australia, New Directions in the US, which you're probably familiar with, and Fitzcarraldo Editions in the UK. So they all kind of came together and made this prize for works that are written in English that sort of redefine the form of a novel. So this book is about a daughter and a mother who take a trip to Japan. The mother is originally from Hong Kong, so her mother tongue is Cantonese. But the daughter, it doesn't say specifically Australia, but I'm assuming because Jessica Au is from Australia, that she grew up in Australia, that our kind of main narrator. At the time when this book starts, the daughter and the mother live in 2 different places. but they meet in Japan to go on a trip together. It's a really slim novel. It's, I think, a little bit over 100 pages. It is so beautiful. It is so atmospheric. That is something that really stands out, is how much it creates such a vivid atmosphere, which you know, I'm a big fan of that kind of writing. It's like a novel that is written like a travel journal, because she's just taking us through their trip in Japan together, and you really smell the smells of Japan. You really see it vividly. You feel the air, how dense it is, how humid it is. It's typhoon season, so that's also a strong element, rain. You feel that kind of October in Tokyo and in Japan vibes. I love books with such an intense sense of place. I have been to Japan in the month of October. I was there in typhoon season. I was in the middle of a typhoon in Tokyo. I have taken the train to Kyoto, been to these Japanese gardens, have hiked on a mountain, have gone to the onsens, which are the hot spring, the bathhouses. A lot of what she's describing was really vivid in my own memory. I felt such strong feelings being in Japan. So it was beautiful just to kind of relive that experience through her writing. The book opens up with them they're on their way from the train station to a museum, and it's kind of a reoccurring, do you like my pink socks also? It's a reoccurring theme that she's chronicling, is that a word? Chronicling their sort of experiences going to different museums. I feel like it's sort of a through line in the book is like all the different galleries and museums that they find themselves in through this journey. So there's a big emphasis on art and looking at art and art criticism, and talking about how being able to speak about art is almost like a language that not everyone speaks. Something that you would learn in school as an art history major or something. Like, to be able to look at art and to say or dissect or something about the technique is such a language that is not really common language between people. Most people look at art and just see, experience, and feel. So she's also talking about that. I'll read you some quotes in a second. I turned to my mother, who was still looking at the Monet, which happened to be one of his most famous pieces. She was swaying lightly on her feet as if to music or as if very tired. I saw that I too sometimes did not understand what I saw in galleries or read in books, though I understood the pressure of feeling like you had to have a view or opinion, especially one that you could articulate clearly, which usually only came with a certain education. This, I said, allowed you to speak of history and context, and was in many ways like a foreign language. For a long time, I had believed in this language, and I had done my best to become fluent in it. But I said that sometimes, increasingly often in fact, I was beginning to feel like this kind of response too was false, a performance, and not the one I had been looking for. Sometimes I looked at a painting and felt completely nothing, or if I had a feeling, it was only intuitive, a reaction, nothing that could be expressed in words. It was all right, I said, to simply say if that was so. The main thing was to be open, to listen, to know when and when not to speak. I think that's such a beautiful point and section. I think as an artist myself, especially in contemporary dance, which is quite an abstract form, people are so eager to understand what they see, and contemporary dance for the most part does not have a narrative that could be understood like a theater play. So one of the first things that people, want to ask when they see a lot of contemporary dance is, well, what does it mean? Or what does it say? Or what was the story? In a lot of ways, sometimes, I understand that urge as a person who wants to understand things like we are as people. And that's something that I kind of always say to someone that comes to see a show. It's like, the main thing is to be open and to listen, and to know also when not to speak, or to know when not to dissect, when just to take in an experience and see how it makes you feel, and also whatever you feel or whatever you think is valid. Anyway, that's a side note. It also kind of goes back to when she was a child. It has a non-linear narrative, which I think until I finished the book, I felt like I really, really love, as you can tell from what I've said already, I love aspects of this book. Shut up and stop honking. Sorry. I really enjoyed aspects of this book so much, but I was like, I'm not sure it's working for me fully as a whole, and I really want to love it, and I'm not. I think I did the book a disservice by not reading it in one sitting. I mean, this is a little over 100 pages, so altogether you could read it in 2 or 3 hours. I just didn't, and I think that I did it a disservice, and I did my own experience a disservice. We're following their trip, but then we're also going back to her experience as a child, her mother's experiences as a child going back to Hong Kong from what I assume would be Australia, and also our main character's relationship with her partner. Anyway, so all of this to say that like it has a lot non-linear narrative, which I think it was hard for me to dip in and out of because I got a bit confused. And if you read it in one sitting, I think that it just sort of flows, as does your memory in a way. Like something will remind you of something from the past. A smell can remind you of something from your childhood. That's sort of the experience of reading this, which I think is beautiful. I just think I sort of fucked myself in a way. And I said all of that because, and this is why this is a chat video, because I'm all over the goddamn place. You go back a bit to her experience in university, and her relationship with knowledge and wanting to kind of learn about everything, to know what she's learning, to gain the knowledge, to really understand it, to dissect it, to be able to talk about it, to be able to have really informed, intelligent conversations about what she's learning or reading or looking at. She's sort of now in Japan looking at works of art feeling like maybe it's enough that I just look at this and I feel something, and maybe I can't put that feeling into words, or maybe I don't feel anything. I'll just go through some other points in the book that I thought were interesting. So generational and cultural loss as time goes on, and I mean that like her mother is originally from Hong Kong, but you know, our main character's first language is English, so they talk in English and feel like they're in Japan, which is neither of their homes, but there are certain things that remind them of home, like certain smells or certain food dishes. But for our main character, it's already like twice removed, you know. She would think how the experience they're having must remind her mother of something familiar to her from China, but then so in a way it's familiar to her, like she gets a sense of home, but actually it's so far from how she really grew up. And displacement, question of home and belonging. Can you feel nostalgic for a life that isn't your own, that is only maybe through your ancestors, that your ancestors experienced? Or there's a section where she's talking about this ancient Chinese pottery that is then replicated by so many other Western countries after a while, that like it becomes a style of pottery, but it becomes actually so far from the original origin in China. Chinese pottery loses some of its importance because it's been replicated so many times, and it just kind of mirrored in a way maybe cultural tradition or understanding, again through generations or through family. And that our main character has obviously these Chinese roots from her mother in Hong Kong, but she grew up in an English-speaking country. Also, I found the museum and art experience very, very enjoyable, like how she talks about going into a museum and they lock their things in the locker and they give their coat in like the cloakroom and then they go in. I mean, I just really miss traveling and going to museums all around the world, and so that experience of like the experience of reading it was really, really nostalgic to me. They're looking at Monet paintings and she's saying how she thinks that the artist is painting with two gazes, one as a young artist, like, or as a young person painting a landscape, like in a sort of romanticized way that you would see, that you would think of as with young eyes or a youthful experience, and the gaze of an older person who has seen life, who has seen these landscapes for a long time, who is maybe even searching for that young feeling and can't exactly find it anymore. So she feels when she looks at Monet paintings, she sees these two distinct gazes, and it just like also mirrored that she's on the trip with her mother who's older, her being a young person, her mother being an older generation, and how they look at the world, how their gaze as they move through this trip together. In general, I could read you like 50 different passages about how she describes art so vividly, nature imagery. Her partner's father is a sculptor, so she says, there was something about his father's sculpture that reminded me of the cliff at the waterfall or the shape forged by the crater. It seemed almost not to have been made by hand at all. Rather, it was more like a rock that once might glimpse in the near distance, shaped just so by the wind or by rain or by time, such that its shallow angles and shadows represented a face in some inexplicable way, and so was all the more surprising and beautiful, because it was both an accident and a symbol. Gorgeous. This is a very quiet book. I mean, the last 30 pages, Ohad left to go to work early, and I found myself reading it out loud to myself, but like that I needed to almost speak it softly and quietly, and I thought that was really beautiful. Something very soft and quiet and striking about it. I think there was part of me that felt like this relationship between the mother and daughter, the mother is barely speaking the whole time. I think that I was searching for something in the narrative to answer this question, why she's like, what is the mother thinking on this trip? Does she enjoy? What is something that was gonna reveal to me a bit more about their relationship, like, or if the mother was going to finally come to some kind of profound understanding that she would finally share with her, and like it doesn't go there. It stays in a sort of observational place. Only by the end I understood that I didn't mind what I thought was missing when I was reading it. I felt like I'm missing something, and then we got to the end and I was like, no, actually it's polished and perfect and imperfect in its own way. I've also been reading, I feel like, a lot from a parent's perspective, reflecting on childhood, and I think that this is a really beautiful portrait of a daughter reflecting on looking at and observing her mother. I think I would like to read it again and commit to reading the whole thing in one sitting. I also feel like there are some nuances that I think I could benefit from picking up on in a second read. The evening became a deep blue. The temperature began to cool. I was feeling further and further away from everything. The ferns by the side of the road were almost shadows. I knew I should be going faster, that I should try and outrun the coming night. But, like the day we had spent kayaking across the lake, I could not seem to find any real sense of urgency. Instead, I wandered slowly, feeling almost like someone lost who contemplates simply lying down where they stand to sleep. That was really beautiful. And one more. The fabrics were hanging in a long room such that you could look at all of them at once or each on its own. Some were small, but some were so large that their tails draped and ran over the floor like frozen water, and it was impossible to imagine them being worn or hanging in any other room but this one. Their patterns were at once primitive and graceful, and as beautiful as the garments in a folktale. Looking at the translucency of the overlapping dyes reminded me of looking upwards through a canopy of leaves. Wow. They reminded me of the seasons, and in their bare, visible threads of something lovely and honest that had now been forgotten, a thing we could only look at but no longer live. I felt at the same time mesmerized by their beauty and saddened at this vague thought. I walked across the pieces many times and waited in the room for my mother. So that's it for our little chat. I don't know, maybe it's not that little, maybe it was long. Okay, I'm gonna head to work and see you in the next video, which is probably Ohad and I working our way through a book together. I kind of mentioned in my last video which one it would be, so watch that one. Have a great day or evening. Yeah, big hug. Love you.